Sanibonani emakhaya ngiyanamkela kuhlelo lwethu i-Limitless Youth Show khona la ku-SABC1 Mzansi for sure, brought to you by the NYDA igama uTholi B. Now today we are celebrating two young ladies who are doing amazing work. I believe there's a song for this, you know, girls who run the world. Now today's girls are definitely running the world. From Tshego Moiloa, who is the designer of the Soccer City Calabash, to the forward-thinking medical practitioner and rehab physiotherapist Nomfundo Tsingwa. I hope we leave you inspired. Like most young people in Mzansi, Tshego grew up Ekasi, and it wasn't always easy, but it was her confidence and aspirations that got her through it all. Everybody's got the capacity to change the world. Let's see how Tshego did it.
I'm Tshego Moiloa, architect. I have a company, it's called Moiloa Office of Architecture and Design, known as MOAD. Soccer City is one of the biggest projects that I got involved in as a junior architect for Bochum and Partners. And at the time, I wanted to do something big, get inspired. I was coming straight from Freedom Park and joined this big firm and got the opportunity to talk to one of the directors, and they offered me the chance to come up with an iconic symbol that represented all of Africa. What I like most about this image where we are is you see the actual calabash. Imagine a basket of dry ingredients or a basket with dry sorghum, and just before it's processed, you add a little bit of water and you let the yeast do its magic, and it starts frothing at the top. We had to make the concept real and realistic in that it needed to tie directly into the materials that were used to build this thing. So the tensile structure that you see is the contents inside the calabash kind of overflowing out a little bit. The colors on the calabash themselves, the lighter sand colors are to fit into context. So we picked up on the mine dubs around, the colors and the pigments from there, and the dark reds are the rich soils that we have. And of course at night, it's just one dark brown solid mass with holes in it that have light coming through it.
When you look at it, you can actually see the cultural influences. The calabash being synonymous with South Africa, but also Mosetswaneng Kingkho. Kingkho is this thing that we use to serve each other. Kingkho manifested as a holding space, I guess, for people to convene.
I used to love doing pottery. From that, it was like a natural progression, and that inspired me to come up with the pot, essentially, which then became the calabash. So looking inside it, you'll see from the facade, you get to see the broken lines, which are the slits in the pot that point to the other stadiums that were involved in the 2010 World Cup. And inside, we replicated it. So basically, those same lines were brought inside. So you'll see the orange, the general orange, which the orange represented the sunsets. This was the closest, you have to be realistic in your color choosing. Yes, you want it to look like sunset, but we all know sunset orange is a whole array of orange. So we picked one, and that's what you see predominantly inside. And the gray represents the other stadiums. So it's a mirror image of the slits in the facade on the outside. This started off as a refurbishment. It almost became a totally new stadium. If you look through and you'll see, there are certain tiers that have a dark gray paint on them. That is what is left of the original FNB stadium. Everything that is this light gray is everything new. So that's how you tell what was there before. We tried to leave behind something that was there before, so we didn't totally erase the memory. And then we just built on it. So come 2010, I then became actually started 2009. I became the overlay planner, which means everything that was required for the event, everything FIFA specific, we had to overlay it. So we had a lot of temporary structure. We had some of the walls we had to add, some we had to move, which were only for the event. I had to firstly, do the drawings and create the routes from how do the VIPs enter the stadium, where do they park. That's one of the constituents. The next is media. How does the media come into the building, go to the areas without mixing with the VIPs or mixing with hospitality guests? And how do hospitality guests go from being out in the tents and come in to watch the game? So all those routes had to be carefully planned, and that was one of my tasks. And in addition to that, all the infrastructure, the timing of it. So as project manager is to make sure that things are built on time. The amazing thing of that whole experience was, I got to see the creation and see it through to what it was intended for.
Tomorrow belongs to the can-do generation.
And if we can do it today, imagine what the generation following us can achieve.
I am limitless. I am limitless.
Now, to do better, you have to think outside the box and also push the boundaries a little. I'm sure this was the same for Tshego. I mean, coming up with such a monumental idea that will live in people's experiences for years to come must have been of great success to her.
I met Tshego at university. The one thing I love about Tshego is that she's very well read, she's very passionate about architecture, innovative, very intelligent. We used to sit there around her drawing board or my drawing board or around the desk, and then we're like, what is your project about? She would say, okay, this is my project I'm doing. For example, we had to design a mixed-use building in observatory. And she says, look, I want to bring sports component into this building. And she designed a floating basketball court. This basketball court was elevated, I remember, and then there were other things inside, and it was addressing the street. So it had an interaction with the street, except that it was raised, it was floating. And she used sports, as an action, and architecture as a platform, to convey something, And for her thesis, her thesis / major project was really amazing as well.
When I did my thesis at varsity, my thesis was called A Cultural Infusion. And what I tried to do was try to find some way of defining a South African architecture. And that was really when it started. Like, I need to figure out this thing. Why is it that all the buildings we see, if they're heritage buildings, they bear lineage to cultures and nations that are not even in the country. So what is authentic? So my thesis was based on that, and I identified an area where there's the most activity, hybrid space, network space, and at the time it was Cape Town Station. And I did a whole cultural center, multi-use space there. I won an award for that. Back then it was the Corebrick Award, and through that project I became the top student of my year. So from that, I then came to Johannesburg, started with a company called MMA Architects, and immediately when I got to join them, they were busy working on Cradle of Humankind, which is Maruping.
I remember chatting with her about the pillars that act as symbols of our democracy. And why pillars? Because pillars are the very structures that hold the infrastructure up, that hold a house up. And taking those and using them to symbolize the kind of the core components of our constitution, democracy, freedom, human, dignity for all.
That was like the very first thing I got into. Immediately it's like, okay, help us with this project. I didn't know, the scale of it. You're coming from university, this is like real practice life, practice work, and it was overwhelming, incredibly overwhelming, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to learn as much as I can, but only deal with a small bit that I could handle. So at the time, it was small stuff. It was like, do the staircase, stuff like that. But it was like the main staircase that links certain things. So it was like small stuff. But I was learning, listening to all the consultants, trying to understand how they work. Because when you're in school, it's very different. You work a lot of the time in isolation and your own thoughts and designs. Then you get to the world, and it's not just about you. It's a team. You've got like 12 other consultants at least that are trying to make this thing happen with you. So I learned that. I got to learn, study that. And then, the principal then trusted me enough to, okay, I want you to start the design process on Freedom Park, which is in Pretoria.
I used to work in Pretoria, and driving into Freedom Park, I remember having the discussions about the lights that you see so when you drive into Pretoria through that route, you see the lights and what it symbolizes and why it will representing torches, I guess, on the path to freedom.
But it all took me just wanting to get involved in the big stuff. Because really, when you join a firm, they give you what they need you to do at the time, unless you are ambitious enough to say, you know what, I actually want to get involved in the good stuff too. So, the one thing that my parents taught me is to always, there's no I can't, I won't, it's how and when. That's the world we live in, how and when. So it was a question of how are you going to get to these people and when do you go speak to them and make it happen? So that's that was my attitude, because even going to work for Bogerman and Partners was a decision I made, that who's the biggest, baddest company in Africa? I looked them up and their name came up. I didn't know them from before then. And I went to them and I said, I'm going to come and work for you. And I was very frank in the interview as well. They were interviewing like, okay, who's this new kid? I'm like, okay, so when do I start? That's how we ended the interview. And, the one director actually chuckled a bit, but afterwards he was like, okay, so, come at the beginning of the month kind of thing.
My deepest fear is not that I'm inadequate. My deepest fear is that I'm capable beyond my imagination.
I am limitless.
She's on radio, she's super energetic, she's very confident, and she's arguably one of the most recognizable female leaders in the medical field in KZN. She is Nomfundo Tsingwa.
My name is Nomfundo Felicia Tsingwa. I'm a medical practitioner by profession, specializing in physiotherapy, with special interest in women's health. My day-to-day job, it's such an adrenaline pumping excitement kind of a thing. I love it. And it's what drives me, it's what makes me wake up in the morning. But when you see that routine and seeing a patient from stage 1 up until recovery stage, it's what keeps me going. Hence, I'm doing the rehab physiotherapy. That's the goal of this is what I want to reach with this patient, and achieving that, it just put a spark on my face.
Our ultimate motive here at Tsingwa Clinic Physio is to keep the patients happy. It's a homely feel. You walk into Tsingwa and you're happy. We treat our patients with the greatest of respect, but we try and make them feel part of us, part of our small little family.
Why I chose physiotherapy? Honestly, I'm a woman of, I would say, a person of character. I love to be unique. I first started acknowledging the passion that I have when I was, I think, age 12, when I was doing standard 6, which is called grade 8 right now. In class, when you do all those courses where you have to identify what you want to be when you grow up. So everyone else wanted to be just a doctor, wanted to be a teacher. I always knew then, at that young age of 12, that I always wanted to be in the medical profession, but not just your typical GP that you find all over around. I was always curious and had that passion of finding out the cause of the conditions that people are suffering from, and hence prevent the conditions as well, instead of just treating and make money and treating and going nowhere. So that's when the love of everything started. And so I just discovered, let me just do physiotherapy, even if it was physiotherapy, but I have to specialize in something else. I studied in Medunsa, Medical University of Southern Africa, but I started in Durban-Westville University. Then I got transferred to Medical University, where I finished my degree.
Every Monday, it's Fit and Fabulous Monday. We speak about health issues. Like I gave you a throw forward last week, we're going to this week, Sikuluma about wet dreams. So we're going to tell you about why wet dreams are actually medical, and it's actually something to do with the feminine sexuality.
Kumele abazali bachaze this thing ukuthi umntwana come from the play no I mean iqala lapho right from njobusho from the early stage bafundiswa abantwana ukuthi yini mawubisa ngekuku yini kuku
Yenzani
ibe njani and how to take care of it ibe clean kangakanani, how to wash it, especially abantwana besifazane if bese bezo-reach puberty. I mean, I nearly cried. My cousin, I think she was 12 when she started on her period.
No, that's very old. They started 9
I was like, whoa. Because I started at a very late stage.
Like 16.
And I remember then, I was not even told what is menstruation.
You know,
yes,
my mom did the same thing. I told her, I came back to school, my best friend Uzodwa, I said, Ma, Uzodwa, udinga my new freedom, uthenga imphathe, uthi yini it's me my head. Was that lock? Ufunza ukuba lock.
I was like, ngeze. I could not understand.
Make sure that you don't miss out as I continue speaking to Dr. Nomfundo Dzingwa. So to shwi. Mina umchaza masathi.
Hayi, basaqale. Hayi, left.
I am limitless. I am limitless.
Most of us have great ideas but don't know where to start. My advice to you is start today by helping someone, because helping others could be a way of helping yourself. Now let's find out more about Nomfundo's initiatives and the pre-dialysis kidney campaign.
I'm such a go-getter. I don't care what comes my way. I just do stuff without even thinking at times. So in 2007, I thought, okay, I can do this. Let me just open my own practice now, like I'm ready. And then 2007, January, I opened my own practice without any capital, no research done. I thought, no, I've got enough clientele. I'm a cousin, like a Debonite in Pretoria. No, I will survive. I'll get all the patients there. I managed the first 3 months, but it was so strenuous. I didn't have any mentoring on the business side of things. And unfortunately, in April, I suffered a severe mental breakdown. I was diagnosed with unipolar depression. So I woke up in ICU on a Wednesday, and I was told that I was in a coma for about 3 days or so. I couldn't walk. I was like paralyzed from neck down. It was a serious condition. So now it was sort of, now I have to go through what I always preach on my patients, what I always do to my patients, physical rehabilitation. So I had to become my patient myself. It was a strenuous, long, stretchy